The world, if you could call it that, is pressure and darkness. A dull, rhythmic thumping exists somewhere outside the warm, leathery shell that has been your entire universe. It is the sound of your mother's heart, or perhaps her footfalls, shaking the very ground you have yet to touch. You know nothing of mothers, or hearts, or the ground. You know only instinct. And right now, that instinct is a single, screaming command. Get out. You press. You push. You use a specialized, temporary egg tooth, a tiny, pathetic little horn on your snout that is your first and only tool, destined to be discarded moments after its sole use. It is a pitifully small key for such an enormous prison. For days, you have been writhing, fueled by the last of the yolk, a thick, nutritious slurry that has taken you from a blind speck of potential to this. A cramped, feathered, 9-pound creature desperate for its first breath of air. The shell gives. A crack appears, a brilliant, terrifying line of light in your suffocating darkness. You push harder, a clumsy, frantic prisoner breaking your own wall. Finally, with a wet, tearing sound, you spill out onto a bed of rotting leaves and damp earth. You open your eyes. The world is a blur of suffocating humidity and overwhelming green. Consciousness returns to nature's most overhyped gladiator. Official designation: Tyrannosaurus Rex. But you are known to the world, or at least the future world that will obsess over your bones, simply as the Tyrant Lizard King. It's a truly spectacular title, dripping with power and majesty. A title, as we are about to see, for a life that is in reality a long, humiliating, and deeply uncomfortable slapstick routine that invariably ends in a miserable death. So, welcome to the late Cretaceous period. It's awful here. Your first sensation is not wonder, but a desperate, searing hunger. Your second is fear. The air is thick with the sweet, cloying scent of decay, the universal perfume of this era. Towering, alien ferns press in on all sides, and the air hums with insects the size of your head. But the most immediate feature of your new home is the writhing pile of bodies you just tumbled from. Your siblings. Dozens of them, all hatching, all covered in the same natal down, all looking at each other with the exact same thought you're having. Can I eat that? This is your first, and perhaps most important, life lesson. Family is just the competition you're born closest to. The sibling who hatched an hour before you has already had its first meal, the sibling who hatched a minute after it. You see it gulping down a feathery leg, and you understand instantly. This isn't a nursery. It's a buffet, and you are simultaneously a guest and an item on the menu. There is no parental supervision. Your mother, having laid her clutch in this pile of composting vegetation to let nature do the incubating, has long since wandered off. Her job was to lay the eggs. The rest is a numbers game, and she played it by making sure there were plenty of expendable copies of you. You are a lottery ticket she has already forgotten she bought. So you do what your genes scream at you to do. You scramble away from the nest, away from your more ambitious siblings, tripping over your own oversized feet. Your body is a mess of bad proportions. A huge head, big eyes for spotting danger, and long, lanky legs built for one thing: running away. Your famous, comically tiny arms are, at this stage, no more or less useless than they will be for the rest of your life. They are nature's cruel little joke, a pair of appendages that can't reach your own mouth. For now, survival is cowardice. You find cover under the massive root of a ginkgo tree, and you hide, your heart thumping a frantic, terrified rhythm against your ribs while the sounds of your siblings enthusiastically murdering each other fade behind you. You have survived birth. The prize for this achievement is a lifetime of escalating peril. Your juvenile years are what humans would charitably call an awkward phase. For you, it is a decade-long exercise in frantic, paranoid survival. You are not a king. You are not even a minor lord. You are the tyrant lizard intern, and your primary job description is "don't get eaten." You spend your days in the undergrowth, a lanky, feathered creature that looks less like a tyrant and more like a badly designed roadrunner. Your long legs, which will one day be pillars of bone-crushing power, are for now your only asset, designed for scurrying away from the legion of horrors that consider you a nutritious and easy-to-catch meal. And what a legion it is! The world is full of bullies. A pack of Decaturaptors, sleek, 6-foot-tall engines of destruction with sickle claws on their feet, can appear out of the ferns with terrifying silence. They are faster than you, they are more agile than you, and they have the distinct advantage of hunting in cooperative packs, a concept far too advanced for your selfish, solitary brain. Your only defense is to see them first and run faster in a straight line, hoping they get distracted by something slower. Even worse than the raptors, however, are your own kind. An adult Tyrannosaurus is the undisputed master of this domain, and it has absolutely no paternal or maternal feelings towards a scrawny, half-grown version of itself. To an adult, you are not the future of the species. You are a walking, squawking calorie package that saves them the trouble of wrestling with a Triceratops. More young T-Rexes end up in the stomach of an adult T-Rex than almost any other predator. You learn to recognize the deep, resonant boom of their footsteps from miles away, a sound that triggers an instant, mindless flight response. Your survival strategy is a pathetic combination of scavenging and hunting things much, much smaller than you. You follow other, more successful predators from a safe distance, waiting for them to finish their meal so you can dart in and snatch a tendon or a piece of gut from the carcass before the big one decides you look like a good dessert. It is a deeply undignified existence. When you do hunt for yourself, your targets are lizards, small mammals that live in burrows, and maybe, if you're feeling particularly brave, a baby hadrosaur that has foolishly wandered away from its herd. But even this is fraught with failure. You are clumsy. Your depth perception is still developing. You will launch into what you believe is a masterful pounce, only to trip over a tree root and plow face first into a mud puddle as your intended meal scurries away. You will try to ambush a tiny mammal, but your massive feet will snap a twig, alerting it long before you're in range. Each mistake is a lesson, and the tuition is paid in hunger. The modern analogy for your life right now would be a teenager attempting to survive in a maximum security prison populated by giant, carnivorous monsters. Your camouflage, a mottled pattern of browns and greens, is like a cheap, off-brand invisibility cloak from a fantasy game that flickers on and off at the worst possible moments. You are a creature of constant, low-grade anxiety, starting at every shadow, every strange scent on the wind. This is the crucible that forges a king, not through noble trials, but through a long and brutal apprenticeship in fear. You learn the landscape not as a kingdom, but as a complex map of hiding spots and escape routes. You learn the habits of other creatures not as a biologist would, but as a professional victim does. The weak points, the blind spots, the moments of distraction. You are not learning to be a king. You are learning the habits of your future subjects from the terrified perspective of being their prey. And then, one day, something shifts. The decade of awkwardness and terror begins to pay dividends. The constant hunger, the frantic hunts for scraps, the relentless exercise of running for your life, it has all been fuel. You are no longer lanky. You are immense. Your legs are now thick trunks of muscle, your neck a column of sinew designed to support a head that is now the size of an armchair. Your teeth, once small and sharp, are now thick, conical spikes of bone-crushing terror, constantly replaced so they are always perfect. You have survived. You have grown. You have reached the peak. At 9 tons, 40 feet long, you are no longer the intern. You are the CEO, the chairman, and the entire board of directors of this ecosystem. Nothing hunts you. The ground now shakes under your footsteps. The Decaturaptors that once terrorized you now scatter like pigeons when they catch your scent. You see a full-grown Edmontosaurus, a 30-foot-long herbivore, and you don't feel fear. You feel a detached, professional sense of assessment. You are a walking, breathing engine of destruction, and the world is your fuel source. That constant, gnawing hunger of your youth has been replaced by the confident, incandescent rage of a creature that knows it cannot be challenged. Life, it would seem, has finally become simple. Your purpose is clear. You are here to convert all the living things around you into more of you. Enjoy this feeling. Bottle it up. Because this is the moment, the absolute zenith of your life, right before you discover the ironic twist. You've escaped all the external threats just to unlock a whole new suite of internal existential miseries. You see, the problem with being king is that it's a deeply tedious and stressful administrative job. Just when life seems stable, a new, far more sucky problem emerges that is arguably worse than being hunted: the soul-crushing burden of maintaining your status. Your first new duty is territorial defense. You now lay claim to a vast swath of swamp and forest, dozens of square miles. And you must patrol it, endlessly. Your days are spent trudging from one end of your kingdom to the other, roaring. You roar to let everyone know this is your land. You rub your massive head against trees, leaving your scent to mark the borders. It is the prehistoric equivalent of a human pacing around their lawn, scowling at the neighbors. And on the other side of that invisible border, another 9-ton T-Rex is doing the exact same thing. You will spend a significant portion of your adult life in pointless, bellowing standoffs with your neighbors, a series of cold wars that occasionally flare into hot, violent, face-biting conflict, all to maintain control over a piece of mud you don't even technically own. Then there is the even greater nightmare: mating. The biological imperative to pass on your genes is now a dominant, maddening force. But you can't just swipe right on a dating app. You have to find a receptive female, a creature just as large, just as powerful, and just as ill-tempered as you are. The courtship ritual is a terrifying dance of violence and vulnerability. The skulls of your species are littered with the evidence: deep gouges and puncture wounds around the jaw and snout, inflicted by other T-Rexes. These are not just battle scars from hunting. They are love notes. You must approach a potential mate with extreme caution, making submissive gestures to signal your intent, all while she eyes you as a potential threat, a rival, or just an annoyance to be dispatched. One wrong move, one misinterpreted signal, and she could decide that killing you is a more satisfying use of her afternoon. The whole process is a logistical and emotional nightmare with a very real chance of disfigurement or death. Congratulations on winning the game of survival. Your prize is a lifetime of anxiety, bureaucracy, and the constant threat of being murdered by your potential girlfriend. The peak, by its very definition, is a brief and precarious place. The descent is always longer and far less pleasant. For you, the decline is not a single, dramatic event, but a slow, grinding erosion of everything that made you king. Old age sets in not with grace, but with the slow, creeping betrayal of your own body. It starts with the injuries. Years of combat, both with prey and with rivals, have left their mark. That leg you fractured 20 years ago in a clumsy takedown of an ankylosaurus never healed quite right. It aches when the air gets heavy with rain. A deep gouge from a triceratops horn on your flank becomes a permanent, weeping sore that never fully closes, a constant source of low-grade infection, and a beacon for biting flies. Your teeth, once your greatest weapons, are now a liability. Some are worn down to blunt knobs. Others have fallen out, and the replacements are growing and crooked. Your legendary, bone-shattering bite is slowly becoming a slightly less effective, bone-gumming squeeze. You are slower. The explosive burst of speed you once used to ambush prey is gone, replaced by a heavy, plodding gait. Hunts that were once a certainty are now a desperate gamble. You miss more often than you hit. You find yourself targeting smaller, slower, less nutritious prey because the effort of tackling a prime adult herbivore is simply too much. Hunger, your old childhood companion, returns. But this time it is not the hunger of a growing body, but the gnawing, persistent hunger of a failing one. Your senses, once preternaturally sharp, begin to dull. Your eyesight is not what it was. Your sense of smell, while still formidable, can no longer pick up the subtle sense that once warned you of a rival's approach or guided you to a distant carcass. The world, once a rich tapestry of information, is becoming a faded, muffled version of its former self. Your status, built on a foundation of pure, unadulterated terror, begins to crumble. The smaller creatures, the scavengers and mid-sized predators, no longer flee from your shadow with the same mindless panic. They watch you now. They are patient. They follow you from a greater distance, but their presence is a constant, unnerving reminder of your own impending irrelevance. The ultimate indignity comes from your own kind. A young, ambitious male, full of the same mindless power you once possessed, enters your territory. In your prime, you would have met this challenge with overwhelming, terrifying violence. You would have crushed his spirit, sent him fleeing with scars to remember you by. Now, you try to bluff. You roar, but the sound is a hollow echo of its former glory. You posture, but your movements are stiff and slow. The younger rival is not fooled. He sees the weakness. He sees the decay. The final confrontation is not a glorious, epic battle for the ages. It is a pathetic, one-sided affair. The younger male is faster, stronger, and burning with the relentless fire of his peak. You are tired. You are in constant pain. The fight, when it comes, is brutally short. He outmaneuvers you, his fresh, sharp teeth finding purchase in your neck, tearing through muscle you can no longer tense effectively. You stumble, your bad leg giving way. You collapse to the earth with a ground-shaking thud that feels less like the fall of a titan and more like a bag of old bones being dropped. The rival doesn't even grant you the dignity of a killing blow. He gives you one last, contemptuous shove, roars his victory to the uncaring sky, and promptly wanders off to claim his prize. Your territory, your hunting grounds, your entire life's work. You are left alone, bleeding, your breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps. The sky above is a flat, indifferent gray. Your end is not the clean, swift finality you dealt to so many others. It is a slow, humiliating fade. You lie there for hours, perhaps days, too broken to move, too weak to call out. The world you once terrorized now closes in on you with a quiet, business-like efficiency. The first to arrive are the smallest. Insects, drawn to the scent of your blood. Then come the scavengers you once disdained. A pack of raptors, who would have fled at the mere sight of you in your prime, now approach with a bold, unnerving confidence. They start at your wounds, tearing away strips of flesh, their chirps and clicks the only eulogy you will ever receive. You are alive for the beginning of it, a helpless, breathing feast for your lessers. Your last sight is not of a noble adversary or a majestic landscape, but of the opportunistic beak of a lesser creature dismantling the body that was once the very definition of power. And just as the last spark of your consciousness fades into a long overdue oblivion, the camera of our story pulls away. It glides over your ignominious, half-eaten corpse, across the swamp, over the fern prairies, and comes to rest on a quiet, sun-dappled patch of earth. There, nestled in a pile of rotting compost, a small, leathery egg begins to tremble. A crack appears. A tiny, downy head, a perfect miniature of your own, breaks through into the humid air. It blinks in the oppressive Cretaceous sun, its life of identical, preordained misery just beginning. The whole pointless, tragicomic cycle resets to zero. So that was your life. A 30-year struggle just to earn the privilege of a slow, painful, and deeply embarrassing death. An epic of sound and fury, signifying absolutely nothing. You'd think that being torn apart by the Cretaceous equivalent of vultures would be the final indignity. But you would be wrong. Your personal tragedy was over. Your public humiliation was about to begin. You see, you were lucky enough to go extinct. For 66 million years, you got to enjoy the sweet, silent peace of decomposition. But you drew the cosmic short straw, because eventually, a new apex predator showed up. A clever bipedal ape with an insatiable curiosity and a real talent for desecrating graves. They would find you. And they would give you a new legacy. A legacy far more absurd and far more tragic than your own short, brutal life. The first of these apes to stumble upon you did so long after the asteroid had come and gone, long after your world had vanished. Picture this. A man, clad in animal skins, ventures into the badlands of what will one day be called North America. He is searching for flint, or maybe just a new place to camp. In the wall of a dry ravine, eroded by millennia of wind and rain, he sees them. Bones. Your bones. Or at least a piece of you. A single vertebra, larger than his own head. A femur, taller than he is. He has no concept of geology, of deep time, of extinction. He cannot possibly comprehend a dinosaur. So his mind does what his species does best. It makes things up. He does not see the remnant of an animal. He sees proof. Proof of the giants from his campfire stories. Proof of the great monsters his shaman sings about. In that instant, you, Tyrannosaurus rex, the pinnacle of saurian evolution, are unceremoniously reborn as a stage prop for a primitive myth. You are not a god exactly. You're more like a special effect. Your entire terrifying existence is instantly redefined by the profound, superstitious ignorance of a creature that would have been a light snack for you in your prime. This new status as a mythological creature isn't a promotion. It's a demotion into a new kind of usefulness. It makes you a resource. Your bones are now sacred, which is just another word for useful in a slightly different way. A local shaman, a man whose entire career is built on convincing others he has a special connection to the unseen world, takes a piece of your fossilized rib. He polishes it, carves symbols into it, ties it to a stick with leather straps, and declares it a wand of immense power. He holds it aloft during rituals, claiming it allows him to speak to the thunder or command the buffalo herds. It doesn't, of course. It's a rock. But it's a very impressive-looking rock, and it's great for business. Elsewhere, in a different part of the world that will one day be called Asia, your fossilized teeth are unearthed. They are mistaken for the teeth of a dragon. And dragon bones, as everyone knows, hold great power. So your teeth, which once tore through the armored hide of an ankylosaurus, are now carefully ground into a fine, gritty powder. This powder is then sold in markets as a potent medicine, a cure for cowardice, a potion to grant strength, an aphrodisiac. The irony is so thick you could fossilize it. Your very essence, the physical manifestation of your predatory power, is being consumed by frail, hopeful apes in the vain hope of absorbing a tiny fraction of your might. They are, in a way, still eating you. But now it's a homeopathic kind of cannibalism, driven by superstition instead of hunger. The gap between your reality and their interpretation of you has become a chasm. They worship your imagined spirit, while literally dismantling your physical remains for trinkets and snake oil. You are dead, but you are not harmless. You're now a source of collateral damage. The myths built around your scattered remains begin to have real-world consequences for your discoverers. A tribe decides to build a village in a fertile valley, only to abandon it a season later because a wise woman determines the land is cursed, haunted by the spirit of the giant whose bones lie buried in the nearby cliffs. The curse, of course, is just a contaminated water source, but you get the blame. Two clans go to war over the possession of your massive, fossilized skull. Each believes it is a sacred artifact that will grant them victory. Men die spearing and clubbing each other to death at the foot of your unblinking, fossilized gaze. You, who have been dead for 66 million years, are now posthumously responsible for their self-inflicted violence and poor real estate decisions. Even as a pile of inert minerals, you are still a menace to their society. So what is the cynical takeaway from this first chapter of your human legacy? That being a god is just a short, inconvenient step before being turned into a tool, a medicine, or a justification for a land dispute. Your terrifying truth was too much for them, so they replaced it with a more convenient fantasy. Your power was repackaged as magic. Your existence was reduced to a footnote in their own mythology. This was your tragic legacy. Part 1. You went from being the planet's most formidable predator to becoming the world's most misunderstood and heavily utilized paperweight. The age of confused worship was, in truth, the age of pragmatic desecration. And it was only the beginning. The next chapter would be far more systematic in its misery. Centuries crawl by, the apes get cleverer. They build bigger villages, invent new gods, and develop a wonderful new system called logic. This, it turns out, is far worse for you than superstition ever was. Sometime around the 17th or 18th century, a new kind of human starts finding your bones. Not a shaman or a hunter, but a natural philosopher, a man of science and reason. And when he unearths your skeleton, he doesn't see a god or a monster. He sees a problem. You are a problem for his neat, orderly view of the world. You are too big. You are too strange. You don't appear in any of his holy books. Noah, according to the official story, took 2 of every kind on his ark. He would have needed a separate, much larger boat just for you and your mate. You are a theological and biological crisis. You are an inconvenient fact, a fossilized middle finger to their entire established narrative of creation. So, they do what humans do when faced with something that doesn't fit. They try to force it. They label you. You are a lusus naturae, a freak of nature. Perhaps the bones of a giant from the time before the Great Flood, a failed experiment God wisely chose to wipe out. Or maybe, as some English academics would later posit, your fossils were simply rocks that just happened to grow in a bone-like shape, a clever test of faith from the Almighty. Your magnificent, terrifying reality is reduced to a footnote in a theological debate, a piece of evidence to be argued over by bewigged men in stuffy rooms. And with this new, enlightened age comes a new form of usefulness. Your new job title is property. The age of commerce has arrived, and it has found you. You are no longer sacred. You are valuable. Fossil hunters, a new breed of rapacious entrepreneurs, now scour the Badlands. Men with names like Cope and Marsh, driven by greed and academic rivalry, launch what they call the Bone Wars. They employ teams of men to dynamite entire hillsides, destroying countless perfect skeletons in a frantic rush to claim the best ones for themselves. Your bones, which rested peacefully for eons, are now blasted from the earth, carelessly packed into crates, and shipped east. You have become a commodity. Your skull might end up in a museum in London, your leg in a private collection in Philadelphia, and your tail vertebrae used to prop up a farmer's fence in Wyoming. You are systematically excavated and systematically scattered. You are no longer a creature. You are an entry in a ledger book, a prized acquisition, an asset whose value is calculated in dollars and column inches in scientific journals. Congratulations. After 66 million years of being worthless, you finally have a price tag. But the ultimate misery of this era, the most profound and systematic degradation, comes from their attempts to understand you. This is the age of reconstruction, and their first attempts are a masterclass in humiliation. Armed with incomplete skeletons and a profound lack of imagination, they assemble you into a monster of their own making. They cannot conceive of a bipedal creature of your size being anything but slow and clumsy. So they stand you upright, almost vertical, like a reptilian kangaroo. They assume your massive tail was not a sophisticated counterbalance, but a thick, heavy tripod leg, dragging uselessly behind you in the mud. You, the agile, dynamic, shockingly fast predator, are reborn in their scientific illustrations and museum displays as a sluggish, tail-dragging, upright oaf. It is a character assassination on a geological timescale. This image of you as a clumsy, evolutionary failure will persist for over a century, poisoning the minds of generations. This is the collateral damage of their progress. They took your truth, your dignity, your very nature, and replaced it with a clumsy, monstrous caricature. Your strength was legendary, but it was no match for a handful of academics with a bad theory and a government grant. Your new legacy was to become the official poster child for getting it profoundly and embarrassingly wrong. The 20th century dawns, bringing with it new technologies and new forms of media, each offering a brand new way to misunderstand and exploit you. Science, to its credit, eventually figures out that you didn't stand up like a man in a lizard suit. They lower your posture, lift your tail, and restore a measure of your dynamism. But it's too late. The damage is done, and your public identity has already been hijacked by a much more powerful force, show business. A new invention called the moving picture discovers you, and you are instantly typecast. You become the ultimate movie monster. In black and white, Then in glorious Technicolor, you are depicted as a roaring, mindless, city-destroying villain. You are shown battling giant apes on primordial islands, terrorizing terrified, screaming women, and generally behaving with the nuance and intelligence of a wrecking ball. The careful, patient, ruthlessly efficient predator you actually were is replaced by a screeching, stomping caricature. This is the version of you that becomes burned into the collective human consciousness. You are no longer a real animal that once lived. You are a special effect, a reliable antagonist, a lazy shorthand for big scary thing. Your image becomes infinitely reproducible and therefore infinitely profitable. You become a logo. A friendly, cartoon version of your head, stripped of all menace, is used to sell gasoline to families on road trips. You are a plastic toy molded in bright, cheerful colors and sold in sets with other, equally inaccurate dinosaurs. Your likeness is slapped onto lunchboxes, breakfast cereals, t-shirts, and bedsheets. You have achieved a new kind of immortality, the immortality of cheap merchandise. You, the tyrant lizard king, the apex predator of your age, have been reduced to a brand. You are a data point for marketing departments, your brand awareness tracked on spreadsheets. You are now everything at once, a scientific specimen to be studied, a movie monster to be feared, a corporate logo to be trusted, and a cute character to sell toys. You are everything, that is, except what you actually were. Then, as the century wears on and the humans become increasingly aware of the staggering amount of damage they've inflicted upon their own world, you are given your final, most profoundly insulting job. Your new purpose is to inspire guilt. You become the ultimate symbol of extinction. Your powerful, dramatic skeleton is now the go-to image for any campaign aiming to raise money for conservation. Help us save the pandas before they go the way of the dinosaurs, the posters cry, showing your magnificent skull next to the sad, black and white face of an endangered mammal. The sheer, galling hypocrisy is breathtaking. You, who were wiped out by a random, cataclysmic act of cosmic violence, are now being used as the poster child for the extinctions they are methodically causing. After being dead for 66 million years, you are drafted into their army of guilt as a professional tearjerker. Your new purpose is to make the planet's current, far more effective apex predator feel a fleeting moment of manufactured remorse before they get back in their car, a car powered by the fossilized remains of your era's plankton, and drive home to their comfortable, climate-controlled house. This new age of supposed reverence brings with it the final, most suffocating form of collateral damage, the prison of kindness. They call it preservation. Your actual bones, the authentic relics of your existence, are now deemed far too precious and fragile for public display. They are taken down from the great halls of museums, disassembled, and locked away in sterile, climate-controlled drawers in the sub-basements of academia. You are cataloged, referenced by number, and occasionally visited by paleontologists who handle your fossilized remains with white gloves. Meanwhile, out in the main hall, your replacement stands tall. A perfect, lightweight, durable replica, cast in plastic and resin, painted to look like the real thing. The public, gazing up at the dramatic, roaring pose, doesn't know the difference. You have been replaced by your own stunt double. Your physical self is now a prisoner in a vault, while your ghost performs for the masses. This is what their conservation feels like from your perspective. It is the ultimate act of possession. Your skeleton, once a dynamic part of a living, breathing creature, is now a static, perfectly preserved museum exhibit. You are a spectacle. You stand frozen behind velvet ropes and under spotlights, a silent, colossal monument to a world they can never know. And they come in droves to stare at you. Tourists from every corner of their globe, pointing their cameras, their mouths agape. They listen to guides drone on with a mixture of facts, speculation, and outright fiction about your life. Children, their hands sticky with candy, press their faces against the glass display cases containing your fossilized teeth, leaving greasy smudges on your prison walls. They are your adoring public. They gaze at you with a sense of wonder and awe, a feeling made entirely possible by the 66 million years and several layers of reinforced concrete that safely separate you from them. You are no longer a creature of nature. You are an artifact of culture, stripped of all purpose, all instinct, all context, preserved forever as a living museum exhibit, minus the living part. What is the ultimate, most profound irony of your modern existence? It is this. After systematically misinterpreting, commodifying, and caricaturing you for centuries, they have finally concluded that they love you. They admire your power. They celebrate your ferocity. They write books and make documentaries, much like this one, extolling your virtues as the perfect predator. They have given you back your crown, hailing you once more as the tyrant lizard king. And they do this from the profound safety of a world they have meticulously scrubbed of anything that could truly challenge them. They worship your savage grandeur because you are no longer a threat. You are a safe monster, a domesticated nightmare. You are a thrilling ghost story that can't actually harm them. They can admire your bone-crushing bite because their own bones are in no danger. They can celebrate your apex status because they have so thoroughly cemented their own. And so we arrive at the final, cynical truth of your long and tortured relationship with humanity. Your tragic legacy, the grand finale, is that you have become the ultimate symbol of power for the very species that would have been your most helpless and easily obtainable prey. They look at your skeleton and see everything they secretly wish they were: powerful, dominant, and free from the complex anxieties of their own civilized lives. They built a world of rules, of laws, of interconnected fragility, and then they look back with longing at you, a creature who represented the beautiful, brutal simplicity of absolute strength. They honor your memory by ensuring, through their relentless transformation of the planet, that nothing as magnificent, as terrifying, and as genuinely wild as you can ever exist again. Their love for you is the final cage. Their admiration is the last link in the chain. They keep your ghost around to remind themselves of what real power looks like, content in the knowledge that they will never have to face it. Let's rewind, shall we? Back to the very beginning. It's important to fully appreciate the depths of your initial misfortune. That leathery egg, your first home, was not a safe, nurturing cradle. It was a ticking time bomb buried in a compost heap. Your mother didn't sit on her nest, warming you with her body. That would be far too much effort. Instead, she outsourced the job to bacteria. She piled mountains of wet, rotting vegetation, ferns, cycads, fallen leaves, and laid you in the middle, letting the heat of decomposition do the work. Your incubation was powered by decay. Your first warmth was the warmth of putrefaction. It's a fitting metaphor for the life to come. The world you were about to enter was a masterpiece of biological excess. This wasn't the tranquil, green paradise your future admirers would imagine. It was a humid, sprawling, violent swamp. The air, when you finally tasted it, was not fresh. It was heavy, wet, and carried the metallic tang of blood, the sweet rot of fallen giants, and the sulfurous stink of nearby volcanic plains. The flora wasn't just trees. It was a chaotic explosion of life, towering conifers that scraped the sky, flowering magnolias the size of houses, and everywhere, an undergrowth of ferns so thick and dense they turned the forest floor into a perpetual green twilight. And the sounds, a constant, deafening chorus of life and death. The buzzing of dragonflies with 3-foot wingspans, the bellowing of herds of hadrosaurs that sounded like a brass orchestra falling down a flight of stairs, and beneath it all, the constant, wet, ripping sounds of things eating other things. This was the world that awaited you. A world of giants, a world of noise, a world of rot. Your hatching, that frantic scramble from your shell, was not a singular event. It was a synchronized wave of panic. Because as you broke free, you immediately recognized the smell of your own blood and the blood of your siblings on the air. And this triggered a response in others, the predators. A sly, long-snouted pterosaur, a flying reptile with a 15-foot wingspan, might have been circling high overhead, watching the nest for days, waiting for the telltale signs of movement. For it, your birthday was a recurring holiday, an all-you-can-eat hatchling buffet. Your desperate, clumsy scramble for cover wasn't just to escape your cannibalistic siblings. It was to escape the shadows swooping down from above. You were born into a world where even the sky hated you. Let's reconsider your juvenile years, that extended period of misery. We've established it was an awkward phase, but the sheer day-to-day humiliation deserves a closer look. Imagine a specific hunt. You are perhaps 5 years old, the size of a large crocodile, but all legs and teeth. You've been starving for 3 days, a familiar state of being. You spot your chance, a lone Thescelosaurus, a small, plump herbivore, blissfully nibbling on some ferns. This is your moment. You are a predator. You are a hunter. You crouch, attempting to be stealthy, a skill for which your 900-pound body is spectacularly ill-suited. Every step you take cracks a twig that sounds like a gunshot in the quiet forest. The little herbivore's head shoots up. It has seen you. Panic. Your plan for a stealthy ambush is ruined. You switch to plan B, the clumsy, headlong charge. You burst from the undergrowth, roaring, or at least, you try to roar. The sound that comes out is more of a high-pitched, reedy squawk, the voice of a tyrant king whose puberty has just hit. It's more embarrassing than terrifying. You pump your long legs, closing the distance, feeling a surge of predatory glee. You are going to get it. You open your jaws, ready for the killing bite. And in that exact moment of triumph, your oversized foot catches on an exposed root. You don't just stumble. You go down hard. Your massive head hits the ground with a dull thud, and you skid for several feet, your face plowing a furrow through mud and leaf litter. By the time you shake the stars from your eyes and spit the dirt from your mouth, the Thescelosaurus is gone. It didn't even run frantically. It just sort of trotted away, occasionally looking back as if to confirm the sheer spectacle of your failure. You are left alone, hungry, covered in mud, with nothing but a bruised ego and the lingering taste of humiliation. This isn't a rare occurrence. This is your Tuesday. Let's talk more about that peak, that brief, glorious window when you finally became everything your name promised. When you became the king. A successful hunt was no longer a frantic, clumsy affair. It was an act of brutal, efficient art. You would stalk a herd of triceratops, not with the frantic energy of your youth, but with the cold, calculating patience of a master assassin. You'd watch them for hours, noting the weak, the old, the distracted one at the edge of the group. You'd learn its rhythm, its habits, and when the moment was right, you would not just charge. You would erupt. The ground would tremble. Your roar, now a deep, bone-jarring concussion of sound, would send a wave of pure terror through the herd, causing them to panic, to scatter, to expose your chosen target. You would ignore the horns and the bluster of the others, your immense brain focused on that one single outcome. The impact would be like a locomotive hitting a car. Your jaws, powered by muscles the size of car tires, would clamp down on a neck or a flank with over 12,000 pounds of pressure. You would feel the crunch of bone, a sensation as deeply and primally satisfying to you as a human feels when solving a difficult puzzle. You didn't just kill. You annihilated. You were a walking, breathing extinction event, a force of nature personified. For a short while, you were, in fact, a god of death and consumption. And that is precisely why the subsequent reality was so crushing. The universe has a sick sense of humor, and its greatest punchline is bureaucracy. Once you are established, your life ceases to be a grand, epic struggle. It becomes a series of tedious, repetitive chores. Let's truly dissect your reign. Your day begins at dawn. You wake up, shake the swamp flies from your eyes, and begin the patrol. This is your commute. You will spend the next several hours walking the perimeter of your territory. The same scenery. Every single day. That particularly large cycad on the western border, the bend in the river to the south, the patch of barren rock to the north. It is a route more ingrained in your mind than the faces of your own offspring, whom you have likely eaten. Your work along this route consists of 2 main tasks. First, roaring. A deep, resonant bellow every few hundred yards to announce, I am still here, and I am still large and ill-tempered. Second, scent marking. You find a prominent tree, and you rub the massive glands on the side of your head against it, leaving behind your unique, musky scent. You are not performing an act of majestic dominance. You are a prehistoric graffiti artist, tagging your turf. You are updating your status on a biological social network where the only message you can post is still the owner of this particular piece of mud. All others can sod off. Then come the meetings. You inevitably reach a border where your territory meets another's. And there he is, your neighbor. Another 9-ton monster, engaged in the exact same pointless routine. The two of you will then engage in a threat display. You will stand parallel to each other, 100 yards apart, and you will posture. You'll puff out your chest. You'll flash your teeth. You will roar at each other for what feels like an eternity. It is a bellowing contest, a long-distance, shouting match of pure aggression. It is, in essence, a corporate meeting. A loud, performative, and utterly unproductive negotiation about absolutely nothing, which ends with both parties tacitly agreeing to have the exact same meeting tomorrow. Sometimes, if one of you is feeling particularly bold or stupid, it escalates. A charge, a clash of heads, a bite that tears away a chunk of flesh. But mostly, it's just posturing. The sheer, soul-crushing boredom of it all is a far greater weight than any triceratops. This is the prize for survival. This is the reward for being king, a lifetime subscription to the most mind-numbing administrative job on the planet. And if the bureaucratic nightmare of property management wasn't enough to curdle your soul, there was the other biological imperative, an instinct even more powerful and 10 times more dangerous, the urge to procreate. This wasn't a pleasant, romantic diversion. It was a terrifying, life-threatening ordeal that made fighting a horned dinosaur look like a relaxing hobby. It would begin with a scent on the wind, a chemical signal from a female, announcing her readiness. For you, this scent was a cocktail of opportunity and extreme peril. It would override your better judgment, forcing you on a quest that was as likely to end in your death as it was in the continuation of your lineage. You would follow this scent for days, leaving your boring, predictable territory and venturing into the unknown, a landscape full of other irritable, 9-ton males who were also following that same irresistible siren's call. Finding her was the easy part. The approach was the true test. You would see her from a distance, a creature as large as you, as powerful as you, and currently flooded with hormones that made her legendarily foul temper even worse. You are the tyrant lizard king, but in this scenario, you are a trembling supplicant. You must approach slowly, cautiously. No roaring, no aggressive posturing. You must make yourself seem smaller, less threatening. You'd emit low, rumbling growls from deep in your chest. Not a challenge, but a question. The reptilian equivalent of fancy seeing you here. Her reaction would be, invariably, suspicion and aggression. She would turn to face you, her massive head low, her tail lashing, a growl vibrating in her throat that you could feel in the soles of your own feet. She is sizing you up, judging your fitness, and deciding whether mating with you or simply eating you would be the more satisfying way to spend her afternoon. This standoff could last for hours. A tense, silent negotiation where one wrong move, a sudden lurch, a growl that's a half-tone too aggressive, would shatter the fragile truce and trigger a full-scale battle. And then comes the courtship. For your species, this involved a healthy amount of face-biting. It sounds brutal, and it was, but it was a necessary part of the process. You would gently, or not so gently, grip each other's jaws, testing strength, resilience, and compatibility. These were not kisses. They were violent, ritualized love bites that left deep, permanent scars. The skulls of your kind are the medical records of your love lives, covered in the puncture wounds and healed fractures of past romantic entanglements. These scars were a resume. They told a potential mate that you had survived this dangerous dance before, that you were experienced, that you were strong enough to withstand the love of a Tyrannosaurus. If you survived this initial, violent, how do you do? The physical act itself was a masterpiece of logistical awkwardness. You are both top-heavy, bipedal creatures. The mechanics of it were a clumsy, precarious balancing act, a fumbling, grappling affair that was less like a majestic union of titans and more like two poorly designed, 9-ton construction vehicles attempting to merge. The entire time, you are vulnerable. The brief moments of procreation are moments when you are both distracted, a perfect opportunity for a rival male to launch a deadly ambush. And after it's all over, there's no tender farewell. The female's tolerance for your presence evaporates almost instantly. She has what she needs from you. Now you are just a competitor for resources. She will drive you away from her chosen nesting site with a renewed, vicious aggression. You, having risked life and limb for this moment, are unceremoniously dismissed. You will trudge back to your own territory, battered, scarred, and alone, to resume your endless, boring patrol. Procreation wasn't a joy. It was a dangerous, painful, and deeply unrewarding business trip. Let's go back to that age of so-called reason, the era of your systematic misery. It deserves a more detailed autopsy. The stage for this act of your tragedy was the American West in the late 19th century. A vast, rugged, and unforgiving landscape that humans were in the process of violently taming. It was a land of cowboys, outlaws, and pioneers, a place of grand myths and brutal realities. And it was into this chaotic theater that your bones were dragged, not as objects of scientific wonder, but as weapons in a petty, personal feud. The two main antagonists in this chapter of your story were men named Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. Marsh was wealthy, meticulous, and politically connected, a professor at Yale. Cope was a genius, wildly brilliant, but erratic and prone to fits of temper. They had once been friends, but their colossal egos and professional jealousy had curdled their relationship into a bitter, all-consuming hatred. And they chose the fossil fields of the American West as their battlefield. They became the captains of the Bone Wars, a period of such frantic, destructive, and comically absurd fossil hunting that it set the course for paleontology for the next 100 years. Their methods were a direct reflection of their personalities. They hired rival teams of fossil hunters who operated more like secret agents than scientists. They worked in extreme secrecy, terrified the other might discover their location. Spies were sent to infiltrate rival camps. They were known to bribe each other's workers for information or to lead them on wild goose chases to barren sites. When they left a quarry, they would often dynamite the remaining fossils, not for any scientific reason, but simply to prevent their rival from getting what was left. Your skeleton, which had survived 66 million years of geological upheaval, was now in danger of being blown to smithereens out of pure, spiteful pettiness. Your identity became a casualty of their race to publish. In their frantic need to one-up each other, they would rush to name new species based on the flimsiest of evidence, a single vertebra, a tooth, a fragment of a limb. They named dozens of species of dinosaurs that never existed, creating a tangled, chaotic mess of taxonomy that future generations of more patient, less insane paleontologists would have to spend their entire careers untangling. You yourself were caught in this. Your various parts, found at different times, were given different names. You were Manospondylus gigas based on a single vertebra found by Cope in 1892. It wasn't until much later that it was all sorted out, and you were consolidated under the far more marketable brand name of Tyrannosaurus rex. For a while, you didn't even have a single, stable identity. You were a collection of aliases, a fossil with a rap sheet. The sheer, arrogant sloppiness of it all is best encapsulated by one of Cope's most famous blunders. While reconstructing the skeleton of an Elasmosaurus, a long-necked marine reptile, he confidently placed the skull on the end of its short, stiff tail, assuming the long, flexible neck was the tail. It was Marsh who publicly, and gleefully, pointed out this humiliating error, cementing their eternal hatred. While they didn't manage to put your head on your tail, the posture they gave you, that upright, kangaroo-like slouch, was an anatomical insult of a similar magnitude. It was a product of the same rushed, ego-driven science. You were not an animal to be understood. You were a prize to be claimed, a puzzle to be solved faster than the other guy, even if it meant forcing the pieces to fit where they didn't belong. You were ammunition in their war, and your dignity was the primary casualty. Let us move now to the final act of your public humiliation, the modern age. the age of mass media and sentimental hypocrisy. After the Bone Wars, your skeleton was mostly assembled, your name was mostly settled, and you were ready for your grand debut. You were ready for Hollywood, and Hollywood was ready for you. You became a movie star. Not a respected actor, of course. You were a typecast character actor, forever playing the role of big, scaly monster. Your film career has been long and profoundly stupid. The plots are always the same. A team of foolish scientists discovers you, frozen in ice or cloned in a lab, and in their hubris, they unleash you upon an unsuspecting major city. You then proceed to stomp around, roaring. Why are you roaring? No reason. It's just what you do. You are an engine of pure, unmotivated destruction. You are impervious to tanks, helicopters, and all forms of conventional weaponry. Your hide, which in reality was just skin, is now treated as if it were forged from battleship armor. Your eventual defeat never comes at the hands of overwhelming force, but from a clever plan hatched by a handsome, maverick paleontologist and a beautiful, brilliant botanist who happens to look great in a torn tank top. They exploit your one, previously unknown weakness, a bizarre aversion to high-frequency sounds, or perhaps your inexplicable desire to climb the tallest building in the city. You are not a character. You are a plot device, a monstrous Gordian knot for the heroes to cleverly untie. Even your voice is a lie, that iconic, thundering roar that echoes through cinemas. A complete fabrication, stitched together in a sound studio from the cries of elephants, the growls of tigers, and the bellow of an alligator, distorted and amplified. Modern science suggests you probably didn't roar at all. Your syrinx wasn't built for it. You more likely produced a deep, low-frequency rumble, an infrasound that would have been felt in the bones of your prey more than it was heard with their ears. A terrifying, subsonic thrum that would curdle the blood and induce a state of pure panic. But that's too subtle, too genuinely unnerving for the movies. They needed a loud noise to go with the big picture, so they gave you a voice that never belonged to you. And now, for the grand finale, let us take one last tour. Let's walk into the great hall of a modern museum. The lights are low, the ceilings are high, and the air is filled with the hushed, reverent whispers of your adoring public. And there you are, the star of the show, your skeleton mounted in a dramatic lunging pose. Except, it's not you. It's your plastic replica. You, the real you, are in 1,000 pieces, locked in climate-controlled drawers in the basement. This is just your avatar. Look at the faces staring up at you. The children, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and delight. The bored teenagers, leaning against the railing, scrolling through their phones, entirely unimpressed by 66 million years of evolutionary perfection. And the adults, reading the little plaque at the foot of your display. Let's read it together. Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. This fearsome carnivore roamed North America 66 million years ago. An apex predator, its powerful jaws and keen senses made it one of the most successful hunters in Earth's history. What a wonderful, clean, heroic little story. It's a masterpiece of omission. Where is the part about your humiliating, awkward youth? The failed hunts? The constant fear of being eaten by your own relatives? Where is the part about the soul-crushing boredom of your territorial patrols? The violent, terrifying, and deeply unromantic reality of your love life? Where is the part about your slow, painful, undignified death from infection and starvation? All of that messy, inconvenient truth has been edited out. Your life has been curated, sanitized, and condensed into a few, awe-inspiring sentences. And as the visitors finish their moment of quiet contemplation, they are gently guided towards the exit. An exit that, by clever architectural design, forces them to walk directly through the gift shop. And here is the final terminus of your legacy. Here is where your journey ends. Your terrifying image, your symbol of ultimate, untamable power, has been fully and completely commodified. You are a squeaky toy for dogs. You are a pair of fluffy slippers. You are a lollipop, your head made of sugary, cherry-flavored candy. You can be purchased as a refrigerator magnet, a keychain, a coffee mug, or a 30-foot-long inflatable for a child's birthday party. The tyrant lizard king, the apex predator, the walking extinction event, has been conquered, not by a bigger predator or a larger asteroid, but by the relentless, all-consuming power of commerce. You have been made cute, and in the end, for a creature like you, that is the most profound and absolute destruction of all.